Hi guys, welcome to my video and thank you so much for coming along and supporting me and watching this video. And if you've watched any of my other videos, thank you so much. And before we get started, please do subscribe to my channel. Please press the subscribe button, the like button, the bell button, whatever button that can support my channel and help it grow. So thank you guys so much. So in this video, I wanted to talk about a new book that's out called Our King, and it's a book about King Charles. And it is written by a gentleman called Robert Jobson, who is a royal commentator. And you may recognize the name, but the face is here. This lovely gentleman is called Robert Jobson. And you may or may not recognize him. I don't know if any of you follow the sort of royal commentary or royal reporters or royal commentators or royal journalists or whatever. But there are the handful of really experienced ones that have been around for decades, been around at the time of Princess Diana. And then, of course, we have the newbies. But Robert Jobson is somebody who has been on the scene for decades. I think he's got a 35-year career as a royal commentator. He's been on a lot of the big tours with Princess Diana and Prince William and Charles when they were young. And, you know, he's been around for a long time, and he's on a lot of these YouTube videos and a lot of these sort of news channels talking about the royal family and obviously current issues. So I actually really enjoy his commentary. I think he's so articulate. He comes across really well, really experienced, really knowledgeable. And he comes across as like a decent guy, really. Someone who sounds trustworthy, who allegedly is quite, I wouldn't say close to the king, but is in the know, if that makes sense. So he knows the people who know people who know people. So I personally am really interested in this book. Now, I am not plugging this book. Okay, there's no interest here. But, you know, I'm not getting anything out of this. But Mr. Jobson, if you're out there, if you by any chance of listening to this video, you know, feel free to send me over a signed copy because I would love that. But I am looking forward to reading this book. And so I'm looking forward to reading this book because I think that Robert Jobson is very credible. That's my view. He comes across as really credible, and his sources, I would imagine, are very credible. So this article in the Mirror basically just summarizes the book. So when I say summarize the book, obviously it just takes out key points, okay? And as you can see from the title, it's 5 key points. It's not obviously the whole book. It's not paraphrasing or summarizing. So please do go and have a look at the book. So the headline here is 5 bombshells in new royal book from Kate's walk to Harry's fury at King Charles. And it says there, Robert Johnson's latest book, Our King, is set to hit shelves next week. And you can see this was written on the 8th of April, so it is already out, making a number of revelations about life behind the scenes in the royal family. So I just wanted to go ahead and look at these 5 bombshells. So there's obviously other narrative in this article. So please do have a look at this article in the Mirror. So the first bombshell is, it says here, Kate's walkabout with Harry and Meghan. So this is in reference to the walkabout after the Queen died. So can I just say from the outset that I've heard that allegedly Harry and Meghan were going to do their own walkabout, and they had Netflix cameras. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? This man wasn't even there on time to say goodbye to his grandmother, and the guy wants to do a walkabout. That is funny. So then apparently William and Kate sort of interject, or at least William interjected and was like, you're not going to do that. We're going to do a walkabout together. And then I have heard from somebody who was there at the walkabout as an observer that some Netflix cameras were actually seen, I think 100 yards away from this. So I don't know how true that is, but that's just what I've heard. Not from my sources, don't get me wrong. I don't have any sources and I don't have any inside information. It's just from all the things I've read, all the things I've heard and watched that are out there on the public domain. So I just was taken aback. Like, the Queen's just died and you guys have turned up. Obviously you don't want to be here, but you want to do a walkabout on your own with Netflix cameras. Wow. Oh my God, I can't even believe it. But anyway, you know, that's just a whole nother video. So, okay. So it says here, when the former Fab Four made a rare and unexpected show to greet well-wishers outside Windsor Castle 2 days after the Queen's death. Many saw it as a move of unity. But according to close sources, the Princess of Wales had found the walkabout one of the hardest things she's had to do so far, as she tried to put aside ill feelings. So the book here, Our King, writes that the display of togetherness was merely an illusion. I mean, that was obvious. That was so obvious, actually, and the only person that made it so obvious was Meghan, which is quite funny because Meghan's the actress, and I've read and seen out and about that the way that Catherine acted on that day was obviously just so queenly. Like, she was just a boss. She was like, right, I'm here, what's up? I don't even see Meghan. And the way she was greeting the members of the public, the way she sort of walked out, I mean, she was just fabulous. And then obviously William is just indestructible, so he is what he is. He was born king. So Harry was all right, but Meghan, she looked so awkward, so nervous. You know, if you watch it again, she's like swaying her hair to one side, swaying her hair to another side, swaying her hair to another side, with her touching her hair, touching her hair, touching her hair, which she tends to always do when she's really nervous. With my view, anyway. That's not factual, that's my view. And the way she's just like, oh, you know, when they first came out and she was sort of standing at the back when everyone was shaking this man's hand at the front, and she was standing at the back, and then Harry had to come and stand next to her, and then when they're doing the walkabout, and she, you know, when they were waving goodbye, and she was standing, so her body language was just so rigid and just like so nervous, and Kate was just standing there just like a boss. And I've seen and read that people were saying, you know, the real actress in that situation was Kate. And it's actually really true, because Kate really put on a face, whereas Meghan was so obvious, and she is supposed to be the actress. So to me, her embarrassment was just so palpable that she just couldn't even pretend, which is weird because she's got acting training and acting experience. So it's like really weird that she just couldn't even pretend. I don't know whether she was trying to put on like a vulnerable stance or a mourning stance. Oh, we're just so you know, we're mourning the death of a queen, a grandmother, or whether it just generally was the fact that she was just so embarrassed. You know, she didn't want to be there, and she had to show her face. So yeah. And then it says here, the public showing was one of the several that William and Kate made in the days following the Queen's death in September 2022, as they spoke to mourners and inspected tributes left at Palace Gate. Okay, so one of the hardest things that Kate has ever had to do, allegedly. You know what? Well done, because you did really well. You know, you really came out of there like a boss. So good for you. So the next bombshell, the Queen had meeting room swept for bugs. What? The library at Sandringham Palace was swept for bugs ahead of a summit to discuss Harry and Meghan's plans to quit as working royals, and not the creepy crawly kinds. According to Mr. Jobson, the Queen ordered the room to be given a once down in case any potential hearing or recording devices, which could result in details of the crucial talks being leaked to the press. Wow. Well, you didn't count on Harry or Meghan to disclose any information, or I should say Harry, because Meghan wasn't there, but you didn't count on Harry disclosing any information about that. Well, he did, our beloved Queenie, after you passed away, in his book Spare, and in whatever interviews he did to promote that book. She chaired the meeting in January 2020 ahead of the couple's announcement that they'd be standing down and moving across the pond. Well, Harry didn't make it sound like she chaired the meeting, did he? Making it sound like she just was sitting aside, just taking it all in, I think is what he said. Charles, William and Harry all attended the meeting, although the book claims Meghan was not there after wanting to join via video link, which the Queen refused over security fears. Interesting. So it was the Queen that refused her to join via video link. I mean, if it was so important to her, she would have been there in person, didn't she? But she buggered off to Canada and left it for Harry to deal with. So, oh well. And the Queen refused. So that's interesting, because I recall, was it in the Netflix documentary that she was complaining that she wasn't allowed to be in there? And then she tried that, all them bloody trigger words, isn't it? Me as a mother, me as a woman, you know, wanting her voice to be heard or whatever. She was silenced, blah blah blah. Yeah, for God's sakes. But yeah, that's interesting. So it was the Queen. Okay, well there you are. Okay, so then the third bombshell, Queen met with curt three-word reply. Meghan's Markle's Meghan's Markle's curt three words response left the Queen taken aback after she offered her some key advice to book claims. Oh God, the Queen herself offered her advice. Gosh, I thought nobody helped her. The two are said to have sat down for a one-to-one chat at the beginning of her relationship with the prince. Really? At the beginning of her relationship with the prince? I'm surprised they even met. At the beginning of her relationship with the prince, and the Queen's giving her some advice. Interesting. In which the late monarch had told her of her delight her grandson had finally found love. Okay. According to Mr. Jobson, sources claims the Queen advised Meghan to spend some time with Sophie, Countess of Wessex, for support, to which she replied, I've got Harry. Jobson claims the Queen was surprised by the remark. So I've heard this before, actually. I've heard that the Queen had offered Sophie. Sophie is the Queen's daughter-in-law. So she's married to not Prince, but he's now the Duke of Edinburgh. He's the Duke of Edinburgh, Edward, who is the Queen's fourth child, the youngest. And Sophie Wessex is his wife. And the Queen, it was known that Sophie Wessex and the Queen were very, very close. And you can also see that from a lot of the coverage after the Queen's funeral, where Sophie Wessex is seen very tearful. I think she talks to the crowd, she talks to the news cameras. So you could see that she was just so affected. And she was also really affected after the Duke of Edinburgh died. And I think in one interview she started crying or something, or tearing up. So she was very close to the Queen, very close to the Duke of Edinburgh, the previous Duke of Edinburgh. Yeah, so she's trusted by the Queen, so, and held in high regard by the Queen, and she offered her to Meghan for support, and then Meghan replied, "Oh, I've got Harry." Okay. I wonder if she regrets that now, or maybe not. I've also heard that apparently the Queen had offered Fergie, that's Prince Andrew's ex-wife, also to offer support to Meghan, and Meghan was like, no. I don't know how true that is, but I've also heard that the Queen offered Camilla, or suggested Camilla, to support Meghan. And again, I've heard that Meghan was like, nah. So, first of all, I'd say that whoever Meghan was offered, I believe she's always going to say nah, because she thinks she knows better. She thinks that she was just some naturally born icon, and she was going to come and just revolutionize the royal family, and everyone in England were just going to fall in love with all of her crap. And everyone sees through that, right? British people, we're all about hard work. We're all about, you earn our trust, you earn our respect, you show us that you work hard, that you respect the culture, you respect the history, you know your duty, you know your role, and you stick it out, right? It's a hard graft. The majority of the British public are grafters and hard workers. And so when you have someone come along for such a short period of time that no one really knows, and they just feel really entitled, it rubs people up the wrong way. So I can imagine she was like, nah, thanks. Instead of being like, okay, this woman was born in what, 1926, longest reigning monarch ever. Maybe I should listen to her. Maybe she knows a thing or two. Maybe I should take her advice. And Sophie Wessex is so well respected by many people. Maybe I should take her advice. I can see why you might have said no to Camilla or no to Fergie, because obviously they've had a lot of negative press in the past. But Sophie, I mean, she's one of the most loved, most well-respected royals. And would you not have taken the Queen's advice? You thought you knew better. You thought you knew better than the Queen. And you thought you don't need Sophie. I don't need them. If you had in your heart a serious intention to make it in the royal family, royal family's lifelong service as a working member of the royal family, if you really were so devoted to this country and doing good with your platform, sacrificing your life to your duty, then you would have taken the Queen's advice. But if you just think, you're so naive, you think that this is just like the celebrity world where I have a PR team that are just going to spin everything, and I'm going to just, be handed awards, and I'm going to be handed this project and that project, and I'm going to be an icon all over the world, and no one's really going to know who I am inside because I've just got this PR filter, then you're wrong. Then you're like, oh yeah, I've just got Harry, it's fine. You were so naive to think that everyone was just going to fall at your feet and fall for your charm. Don't think so. And frankly, you should have taken the offer of Camilla and Fergie because they've stuck it out, haven't they? They've had worse press than you. Fergie had worse press than you. Camilla had worse press than everyone I've ever known in the royal family to have had. She was the most hated woman in Britain, and now she's the Queen of England. Come on. If you wanted any advice from anyone, I would have taken it from Camilla. But, you think you know better, so okay, good for you. Good luck with your awards. And so the next bombshell is Harry's outbursts weirded the Queen. Volatile exchanges between Harry and his brother had puzzled the Queen, the book reveals, with the late monarch thinking he and Meghan were quite mad. Okay. Despite her great affection for grandson Harry, Mr. Jobson writes how the head of the royal family became tired listening to the couple's criticism of the institution. Do you know what? I think that's probably right, because I think that she was never happy with anything, needed to criticize everything, found a problem in everything, found herself to be a victim in every situation. Nothing was ever good enough, and her expectations were really high. And I think Harry was at fault because I think that Harry raised her expectations. I think he came along. He knows that all he has to offer is his princely title. He knows all he has to offer is his money, his royal family, and all the things that a royal family offers. So, going to Buckingham Palace and walking through the doors of Kensington Palace, all of that sort of the jewels, the diamonds, as she's in her SUV in their wedding prep, driving down that massive long walk in Windsor Castle, approaching Windsor Castle in the background, knowing that's where you're going to get married. Like, it's all of that sort of stuff. As he's sitting next to her and her eyes are sort of watering with glee and happiness, and he's sitting next to her just like, yes, this is what you get when you marry me. This is my world. And I feel like that was his. Have you ever met a guy that's like, he's new money, he earns a decent amount of money. He's not overly rich, but he flashes his money. So it's like, oh, look at my car. Oh yeah, I'm going to take you to like a really expensive restaurant, and you sit down, you're like, wow, God, he can afford this. And he's just flashy because he thinks all that he has to offer is like his money. So he overly flashes his money, tries to sell you this lifestyle, and then once you kind of get serious, it's really not, he can't maintain that lifestyle. So the first birthday he might buy you like a designer something, and that sort of dwindles away. So I think he was kind of like that he was like, oh, look at this world, we're in Botswana, date number 3, and I'm going to take you on a jet to Botswana, and all this stuff that he kind of sold her, that she thought like, oh my God, Princess Diaries, and I've got this like amazing world. And then he put it upon himself, like, okay, now I've brought her into this institution and I'm showing her, all these things, and her eyes are like, massive, and like, wow, 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 as he describes in his book Spare, when she first saw William and Kate's apartment, like, wow, wow, wow. And I kind of feel like, when things went wrong, like when she was having a hard time, or people might have been giving her a hard time, or she was having to, there might have been an expectation for her to work harder, or she wasn't working hard enough. I think he then, was a little bit ashamed, and, that he'd kind of brought her into this world and this was his world, and it wasn't working out, even though he'd kind of showed it off. And so therefore, every time something kind of went wrong, he was overly angry or like overly critical, because he wants things to be perfect. He wants her to have this fairy tale, Agrabah, Princess Diaries world. And that's not the reality. And so I think because that's what he was offering her, and that's really all he has to offer, and it wasn't working out, and she was, crying all the time and complaining about everything. It's the world that he brought her in. So I do believe that they were just constantly criticizing, and the Queen was just like, oh, for God's sakes, like, seriously, I'm 96 years old. I have like an electric heater. Like, leave me alone. You know what I mean? Like, she's seen it all, heard it all. I mean, she knew Wallis Simpson, for God's sakes. Yeah. Like, she was alive during the abdication of Edward. It's like, she really just sees them as just so minor, and she's just like, can you just get on with it? The stuff they're moaning about, she probably was like, are you serious? Moving on, Queen Elizabeth also thought Harry was so consumed by his love for Meghan that it was clouding his judgment. Well, I mean, I couldn't have said it any better. I mean, I tried to say it in that long spiel, but that's basically it. And then the last revelation reported in this article is that Charles wouldn't pay for Meghan, leaving Harry infuriated. Okay, Prince Harry was infuriated to be told King Charles wouldn't pay for Meghan Markle's expenses ahead of their wedding. What? Prince Harry was infuriated. Infuriated. You are what, a 36-year-old man? Because your daddy wouldn't pay for your girlfriend. Your girlfriend's expenses. What are her expenses? They're not even married. Wow. The incident took place during a meeting between the royal princes and Charles. See, this is why William is just vexed, because I bet you William's been a part of all these meetings, allegedly. And I bet you when it was Kate, it was like a whole different thing, like protocol, right? Because if you remember, Meghan Markle attended the family celebration at Sandringham on Christmas when they weren't even married. And that's not supposed to be allowed. Like, the protocol or the tradition is that it's only married, like, spouses that attend the family Christmas. But the Queen allowed Meghan to attend, and they weren't even married. And I bet you, Kate Middleton, that she was together with William, 9 years before they got married? I bet you he had to abide by that protocol. So this situation probably makes him vexed, because he was probably like, hang on a second, my wife has been around for 20 odd years. How on earth, my wife is going to be the future queen. How on earth has her expenses not paid, but you want us to pay for this girl who allegedly is supposed to be a millionaire in her own right? Where are her millions? Where did they go? Oh, this just vexes me so much. Honestly, just the expectation of these two and the demands of these two is crazy. Harry knew her for what, a year at this point? Wow. Anyway, so yeah, in the run up to the big day in May 2018, where the then Prince of Wales dropped the bombshell he couldn't afford to pay for Meghan in the future, alongside Camilla, William, and Catherine and their young family. What I think this is it's not this sovereign grant. So it's not the money that you get that the royal family gets from the government, as it were. I think what this is, because I think I've read this before, is that Charles has his own private money. So he has his own private wealth, and it's that private wealth that obviously he does pay for Camilla. He gives some money to William, gives some money to Catherine, and then he was paying for Harry. And I think it was that money that Harry was like, well, where's the money for my wife? And it was also that money that when Harry said in the Oprah interview, my father had cut me off financially, I think it was that money that he was talking about. So it was his dad's private money, because what happened was, after all that Oprah interviews rubbish happened, it was actually confirmed, because so the money that the royal family get from the government, that is itemized, and the public, or I don't know if it's the public, but it is disclosed where that money goes to. So it was disclosed that Charles had actually given Meghan and Harry millions of pounds when they left the royal family, up until, and I might be wrong, but it's something like March or April 2020. So they had left in like December 2019, January 2000. I mean, they'd already given the Oprah interview, for God's sakes, in like March 2020. So the money hadn't stopped yet, or had just about stopped at that time. And that is from the sovereign grant, from the money that comes from the government, or the taxpayers, the people. So I think what Harry was trying to say was it was in fact Charles's private money that, like, he had stopped giving Harry. And because I've read this before somewhere, where they were like, well, he expected, you know, people are like, well, hang on a second, you've left the royal family, why should you still be getting money from taxpayers, right? You're not a working member of the royal family, why should there be money given to you from the taxpayers? So obviously bugger off, because the whole point is that you get money, you get privilege from the taxpayers, because you then exchange that for a life of service. But I think what he was trying to say, and I've only know this because I've read it somewhere, not because I am any expert in what Harry is trying to say, but I think what he was trying to say is that it was Charles's personal money, so his private wealth, that he was giving to Harry, that he stopped. And I think Harry expected that for some reason to continue, which is just a laugh, as this feminist woman is sitting there next to her husband in an Oprah interview, who's like 36, 37, talking about how they've been financially cut off by his father. And she's some feminist independent woman that has no money, allegedly. Anyways, so yeah, I've heard that before. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these things are things I've heard before. So again, that brings me back to how Robert Jobson, I think, is quite legit, really, in his reporting. And so the article ends: the relationship between Harry and his father has broken down in recent years since quitting royal life, with the king's youngest son having made some scathing revelations in his numerous interviews and tell-all memoir, The Animosity Reportedly Shocking Charles, the book writes. I'm not surprised that it would shock him. I mean, I've heard that he's quite a sensitive man. I've heard that he doesn't like confrontation. And he's been through a lot in his life, frankly. And it is sad that his son has done what he's done. And it's also sad that that seems to be all they've done, is go off and make hundreds of millions doing podcasts and Netflix and books and interviews and this and that and magazines, and yet it's like, guys, first of all, I know more about you than I did when you were in the royal family. Second of all, if you were in the royal family, you would have done a lot more charity and a lot more public service and a lot more good than is that you are trying to portray that you do since you've left the royal family. So when you said you were leaving and you were going to go off and perform your own service and set up your Arch Royal Foundation and be these iconic humanitarians like Eva Peron or the Clooneys, or I don't even know, you've really failed in that regard, in my view. So I'm just waiting for the next PR stint. I mean, no doubt Meghan's going to come up with something, and this is why she's not here. Some podcast, some book, you know, some award ceremony in May to receive her stupid award with her massive bloody train dress. I don't even know. Anyway, guys. So guys, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed this summary. So yeah, go ahead and buy the book if you're interested. I mean, I certainly am. And yeah, if I've got time, I'd love to do some review videos actually about this book. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm so sorry it was quite long. But guys, please do subscribe to my channel and take care. Bye, guys.